our bodies talk to us, but are we really listening? Because if we were listening, I think we'd solve things sooner than we end up solving them. Now, I've learned to listen, and today we want to try to figure out how to help you guys learn to listen. So, learn from our mistakes. Hello, Wellness Warriors. Welcome to Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. I'm Violet.
And I'm Pat.
Obviously, today we're talking about listening to your body.
The first sign for me that my body was talking to me and I didn't really listen was the fatigue. At some point before I started doing low carb keto, at first I was keto, there was a lot of fatigue happening with me, like in meeting, after lunch, at work, evenings. Basically, I became a napping machine. I was sleeping all the time. We're telling us reasons that it's normal or we are avoiding problems. For the fatigue, for me, was like, oh, it's normal, I must be lacking sleep, or oh, I'm just gonna get another coffee to try to boost me up a little bit. So that was like a early sign my body was telling me something and I didn't listen.
You know, it's funny because you say getting a coffee or whatever. I wasn't a coffee drinker before I met you. And so I do remember getting tired and falling asleep. It never occurred to me because, again, I'm a night owl. So if you're up all night and then you fall asleep during the day, it seems normal that you'd fall asleep during the day. But it's also like, why am I up all night? I feel like the other thing is that when your body is out of sync with everything that's happening around. So again, I don't know how much of this is just like not being in a good pattern because you're not eating properly. So then you're not like, so, but I do remember being tired.
Yeah. But for sure, after I started keto, all my sleepiness, especially in the afternoon, disappeared. Like actually, even the more I fasted, the better I was, like doing my afternoon meetings, like being all cranked up and all like alert. That was a good improvement.
Well, that's one of the things that we learn about keto though, right? Is that when through doing keto, you eat less, and then through eating less, you start to see the pattern where when my body doesn't get food, my energy ramps up. And that's the natural biological result of if you were actually hungry out in the world because you haven't eaten, your body would give you energy to go catch something. So like I'm glad that you actually saw that connection happen there.
And we're not talking about maybe some of you have insomnia or difficulty sleeping that might be related to food. But I was like sleeping normally. Maybe I was getting like to bed at a late-ish side, but having 6-7 hours of sleep and still falling asleep like in the afternoon. And it was noticeable after lunch. Like I ate something, like had it a little down. Even supper, I ate something, like I had my supper, had a little down.
It's interesting that you mentioned insomnia because I do feel like sometimes people's insomnia is related to worries, and worries cause cortisol, which causes influx of sugar. So it's like one of those situations where I'm not sleeping because I'm all hyped up and I have all this happening too sometimes. So yeah, I can see where eating the wrong foods could be contributing to people having insomnia. You know, when I was looking at this topic, signs that your body isn't functioning or signs that your body's trying to tell you something. The funny thing to me is that the signs that you're going to get will depend on what you're paying attention to too. So your body can be giving you all kinds of signs. Like, my body was actually giving me signals that I didn't know were signals, and then it was giving me inflammation, which I absolutely knew was a problem. I didn't know that it meant I was eating wrong. What I knew was that I had inflammation. So what I knew was I had pain in my knees, pain in my elbows, like I had a bunch of joint pains. I mistakenly attributed to sports because I did do a lot of sports. But like looking back on it, my inflammation problems started back in my early 20s. If I would have known back then, obviously, that my body was trying to tell me something, clearly I would have done differently. I say that even though when my body's signals were interpreted by doctors, I didn't always get the right answers. So that's a whole other story. But in this case, is like for sure inflammation, so pain in my body, I was getting that signal 100%.
How did you decide to ignore those signals?
Not that I felt like I was ignoring them though, because I was attributing them to sports.
Well, you learned to live with them, actually.
Sure, it was live with them or don't do the sport.
Yeah.
Right, and I feel like so there's this thing that we do because we want to do something. We kind of allow ourselves to get used to how we feel. Is that the best thing to do?
Because I remember oftentimes, like especially at the beginning before we were keto, you actually were telling me, "Oh, I'm always in pain. So like, let's go, let's go do something. Let's go do board. Anyway, it won't change anything. I'm always like feeling pain. So
Yeah, I mean, I did have an attitude of, well, if it's gonna hurt me anyway,
mm,
might as well just run my body into the ground. And like that was actually a thought I had. I'm in pain. I might as well just
yeah,
run my body into the ground till it can't do anything else because I thought there was no other option. Like obviously today I know there was another option,
yeah.
right? But these are things you learn in the journey. I think the other thing that's interesting is that when I met you, I had already started going to a chiropractor, which I still do to today. I still go because I feel better after I go. So even though it's weird, even though I'm not walking around in pain all the time, what I've learned from going to the chiropractor is that your body is constantly being put out of alignment just because, again, of all the sports I do and all the falling that I do. So, like when you fall, you get out of alignment, and then, of course, just being put back into alignment, it feels good. But so it's weird. It feels good. Not that there was pain there to start with, but it just kind of feels better.
Mm-hmm. But right now, you're not feeling any more inflammation. Like you're not as inflamed as before. You don't have any joint pain. You still go to the chiro, right? Like that's what you just said. You
I don't
go.
have any joint pain. So I go to the chiropractor because, well, partially because it's part of my routine now to
Mhm.
go to the chiropractor. But like also, I do like the adjustments.
Mm.
But, and I do imagine that if I would not go for extended period of times with all the falls that I live, probably eventually I would have some kind of pain because, right, if I'm having all these falls and I'm never getting put back into alignment, I'm going to imagine that pain would happen. But this is that thing of like, am I doing something preventative or am I doing something reparative? The chiro for me right now is preventative. It keeps me from getting into a bad situation, right? Eating well is preventative. It keeps the inflammation at bay, right? Like, or not even, is it at bay or is it not there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like eating well, like I don't feel inflamed. So then going to the chiro is just a nice, well, it's not quite a massage, but
Mhm.
it feels nice.
Yeah. A big sign that happened to me a couple times in my life after my early 20s, the weight. I think you're ignoring to up to a certain point where like you look at yourself and you like, okay, what's happening right now? You step on the scale and what's happening right now. Thing is, like, as we learned in the past, you just like move more, eat less, and we know that doesn't work. So a good sign that your body is telling you something, if you're gaining weight, if you're putting more fat, like that's a good sign that your body is telling you something.
That's a great sign, I think, for most people that your body's telling you something. Depending on the world that you come from, so Caribbean world, like weight is seen interestingly. Like a lot of the images that we have here in Canada about what's an ideal weight compared to images in the Caribbean of what's an is not the same. So I will say that for me, the weight, although I think it's actually an indicator of your body trying to talk to you, was not something that I saw as an indicator. Like I said, I saw my pain as an indicator, but my weight, it just seemed like that's just what people weigh. And it was just like that was the idea. So I agree.
Isn't that culture image a way to avoid addressing the problem, or even like seeing that there's a problem with like with our health?
Well, actually, I'm going to say no
No,
to that.
okay.
To that. Why? Because I feel like it's a matter of culturally what's seen as important or not. So the idea that everyone should look a certain way isn't existing over there. So they're accepting whatever weight you happen to be. And as a matter of fact, there's a lean towards heavier being healthier.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel though that that's a misunderstanding in that sense. But I don't think it's a cover up. I think it's just a different way of seeing
Okay,
things.
yeah.
Right? I feel like that's just not a vanity metric that they have in that sense over there. That being said, with one foot in the Canadian world, one foot in the Caribbean world, is like it wasn't a red flag for me initially. And as a matter of fact, and you lived that journey with me, that I got to a certain weight and I actually didn't like myself, and I purposefully put gain weight back on. So this is not where I landed doing keto. I pushed myself back to this because I didn't like where I landed, right? So, and I feel like this is an interesting thing of like we have an idea of what we're supposed to look like, and so then I go back to is there one specific ideal weight? Like if you weigh the, if you're this tall, you're supposed to be this way. And I don't think that's the reality. I think people are gonna fall in a range, but then B, there's also what I like myself to look like. All that being said, eating normally now and just eating naturally now, this is where I managed to stay, right? And if I would like only eat the fat that came along with my food, so with the meat that I was eating, I wouldn't be able to maintain this, which is interesting. But I don't do this with carbs,
No.
right? So I maintain this little bit of extra weight with fat
But what do you
purposefully.
like? What do you mean? Okay, you're saying a little bit of extra weight. I'm curious about that.
So this is not where my
Because-
body naturally stays.
No?
If I if I
Okay.
strictly eat 20 grams of carbs or less to eat the satiation
Okay.
and don't add any extra fat,
Okay.
my body falls less than this.
Okay.
But then I feel uncomfortable.
Okay, so this is a good thing to keep in mind. Like you also need to listen to what's comfortable to you, I guess. Like your body is telling you something, but you also need to be where you're comfortable, but not without avoiding a problem. Like my
Because
question is,
I'm still within the normal range for someone of my height.
yeah,
weight.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like I don't know, I'm just gonna throw a number. Like if you weigh 300 pounds and you're comfortable with that, like isn't it again a way to not addressing the problem?
Yeah. Okay. So and again, I'm not saying that's a way to not address the problem. If I'm 300 pounds and I'm comfortable at 300 pounds, it might just be that I'm comfortable at that weight. For example, sumo wrestlers are at high weights and they're comfortable. That's part of what they do, right? They
Yeah.
bulk up and do that on purpose. I'm not judging. That's what they do. What I'm suggesting right now and what I'm talking about is when I did the weight loss portion of what I was doing, and like just eating normally, naturally, like stopping when so eating 20 grams of carbs or less, stopping to eat when I'm satiated, only eat, like when I did that, I fell to a weight that was, if I remember correctly, like maybe 15-ish pounds less than what I was aiming at originally. And then when I got there and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, I'm like, ooh, I don't like this. And it wasn't loose skin reason. It was in clothes, don't like it. Like in my clothes, I didn't like it. I was too skinny. Like my face, I didn't like.
For your face, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like. So then I put back a bit, and then I felt sort of like now I'm at a weight that currently that is not. It's still not the original goal, but it's not 15 under, and I feel more comfortable.
Okay.
So, and it's not hard for me to maintain, like eating a little teeny touch more fat on. So if I'm putting salad dressing on my salad, like I put a little bit extra, or if I'm, like just, when I eat a pork chop, okay, well, I actually eat the fat, right? Like just making sure that I have that little teeny bit extra fats. And if I make a coffee, that I might add some fat to like just that little bit extra to keep me not losing, basically.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing for me. I really never wanted to weigh like 150 pounds. Like I think my frame, I would look a little bit weird with that. But question is, even low carb, I'm stable and I'm happy like where I am. My blood pressure could be a little bit lower, probably still. My question was more like, how do you balance where you feel comfortable at versus all the other health problem that could occur, if not right now, in 5 years, 7 years?
So for me, I think the point that I'm still trying to make, and maybe this is where you're getting confused, I'm still within the normal healthy range.
Okay.
So I'm not above
Okay.
I'm not overweight or obese. Like I'm not above a normal healthy range. I'm actually still lower than the top part of my healthy range. Versus like if you're talking to someone and they're still above their normal healthy range, then you saying, but I like this, is like, okay, then I could see where you're saying, well, are you just giving yourself an excuse? Because if you're telling me that you're still above your normal healthy range, but you've decided to stop there because whatever, then I would say to you, okay, come on, like at least get to your healthy range. So that's the different conversation that we're having here, right?
LT range according to.
So and this is, again, we're talking about doctors, right? Like there's a range that the doctors say, like if you're between this and this, like your chance of metabolic issues is less.
Okay.
Right? Now, like I said, like me at the lower end of my healthy range, like I didn't like that look. Right? It doesn't mean that if I would have stayed there, that any doctor would have looked at me and said, oh my gosh, she's anorexic. No, it was just me personally, not so interested in looking like that. Now, would I have stayed 20 pounds above my healthy? No, I wouldn't have done that either. That's not logical, right? What's the point of being healthy but keeping myself outside the range of what doctors are telling you is healthy? So, like currently, I'm living at a weight that, according to all the research and doctors and whatever, like I'm good.
Hmm.
There's nothing for me to change, right?
Okay.
Now, does it mean that I would never go down a bit or go up a bit? Like again, we can't guarantee that because every day I eat differently. This is part of the reason I step on a scale every once in a while, just to verify like where am I and whatever, right?
Okay. So if you're doing a healthy diet, a keto diet, it's less probable that you're going to be overweight. Like your body is going to stabilize where it should be comfortable at.
I wouldn't say that you can't be overweight doing keto, but I would agree with you that the likelihood that you're going to be overweight doing healthy keto, less likely.
Okay.
Right? And so this is again comes back to paying attention to what you're doing. Because the same way that it's very easy to get into a routine of eating a certain way and your weight is kind of going down because your body is doing what it's going to do and it's going to use the energy that's on board if you're not giving it carbohydrates and it's going to do all the right things. And seriously, I don't think I would have gotten down to a weight where medically I would have been in trouble because I was eating and I was eating every day. And as everybody who watches this channel knows, I was eating about 2,000-ish calories per day, which when I was dieting, back in the day dieting, like if I was eating like 1,400, that was like so like I was eating 2,000, sometimes even 3,000, depending on the meal. Like I wasn't caring about the calories that I was eating, right? Just to put this in perspective in terms of how much food. What only thing I was caring about was how many carbs were on my plate. So do I believe that I would have ever gotten down to a weight that was dangerously low for me? No, I don't think that that was ever going to happen. The thing is, there's a difference between how much you weigh that's healthy, like your body is comfortable doing and whatever, and how you think you look at a certain way. And this is just, again, Caribbean, like all the Caribbean people out there, I know you understand what I'm saying. And then everybody else, just believe me, that this is, it's a thing. So I want people though, like, don't, and I see where you're going. Don't try to fool yourself into saying I'm 100 pounds overweight, but that's not a big deal because I like it, when you're having metabolic issues pop up. Like I would, if I had metabolic issues happening, 100%, I would continue to put the weight where the doctors were telling me it needs to be. The thing is, there aren't any metabolic issues, and I'm not maintaining this through carbohydrates, right? This is the other piece of the puzzle. I'm not maintaining this through carbohydrate.
So for sure, weight is a sign that your body is talking to us. But instead of working towards a weight goal, maybe just work towards your ratio, waist, height, and there's other like clues that might like help you to get to a healthier state with your with your weight.
That, and the ratio he's talking about is 50%. So when your height to waist ratio is 50%, the doctors again agree that metabolically you should be doing well. Okay, so the other way that you can tell that your body is trying to tell you something is through the foods that you find yourself chasing. And so this is kind of a backwards one, because there's two different situations that I know that I personally lived, where looking back on it, if I was actually allowing myself to understand that this is my brain, body trying to get me to see something that's happening. Part one, when I was hungry, the first thing that I would think about was chocolate. And so imagine the scenario, because if I'm actually hungry and then allow myself to eat chocolate, how much chocolate am I going to eat, right? So now I'm eating excessive amounts of chocolate. But then there's this other scenario that I realized, like, so looking at my life also was happening, where I wasn't actually hungry, but I would get this like signal to go get chocolate. And that was a pure craving that was coming out of addiction, right? So I mean, today I know that. Like, why was it that my brain was telling me, Violet, you need chocolate? And think about this. Today, I never get that signal. And as a matter of fact, I will say today, I don't get any signals about what to eat.
Yeah.
I get hungry or not hungry.
Yeah, true.
But I don't get like, oh, I want X. Like I
Go get
never,
chips.
I usually feel hungry
Okay.
and then I'm like, oh, what am I having for supper? That's like what happens today. So
Okay.
I feel like the big thing here is that if you're getting cravings at all, it seems that that's your addiction
Yeah.
system that's coming on because, like I said, I'm hungry today. I do get hungry. Never is there a food in the sentence in my like that's happening in my brain. Whether it's not even get a steak. It's not that at all. It's like there's never a food attached. It's just like ding ding ding, you're hungry. Period.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've noticed that, but like for me it's like so obvious.
Yeah.
Versus when I was in the carb world, there would always be a food attached.
But you were craving a specific food, like it was mostly chocolate. For me, it was more like craving. It was a craving associated with something else. So watching TV, I needed to eat something. Like I did really that association where if I was like watching a TV show at night before going to bed, I needed something to eat. And whatever it was, like chips or chocolate or square dates or a dessert or piece of cake, it was something sweet, obviously, but like it was associated with like something I was doing.
And I think this goes back to what I was saying too. Like, so when I was not hungry, but then having this craving to eat something, like that's going back to this whole self-soothing thing.
Yeah.
Why am I actually eating right now? So my brain is sending me the signal. Am I bored? Am I upset? Am I happy? So all these different things that we associate with a pleasure or getting away from a pain, and then we end up eating something, right? And I do think that, again, it's like if I don't start to realize that I'm letting myself eat to solve something that's not about fuel and energy and building my body, I will keep doing that, right? And like there isn't really another scenario where we would do that. Like if you think about it, like I'm not talking emotional, right? Like the truth is, if you were working in the garden and got a big gash across your arm, you wouldn't go inside and get a chocolate bar. But yet, if I get emotionally hurt by you, I'm gonna go and get a chocolate bar because it's an emotional ouch. And I can't just put something on it, so then I try to eat. So I'm getting that soothing, but internal in the brain, right? That dopamine rush, that all those all that chemical stuff that's going to happen in my head to momentarily help me to feel better, but in the long term it's not doing what it's supposed to.
But you're talking about an emotional ouch. What about like you go to the movie? It's not an ouch. You go to the movies like popcorn and chocolate and you feel yourself even when you're not hungry. It can be also a positive emotion or an association.
You know what's funny to me? I feel like we are so used to giving ourselves reasons that we don't see the reasons when they're right there. The emotional ouch of going into the movie theater and not buying the popcorn is I want to be like everybody else. And if I don't have popcorn, I'm not like it. And there's the emotional ouch that's happening. Because the truth is, if you're not hungry, why are you buying popcorn? And if you're hungry, why are you going to the theater? So eat, no matter where you come at that from, right? The emotional ouch is that I want to be like everybody else.
Okay. Because like it's doable, like guys, if you like going to the movies, maybe it's maybe a bit more difficult right now, but like we started going to the movies and we never buy popcorn anymore. You're gonna save like a few dollars, put back in your pocket.
So I think that there's a lot to be said for like allowing yourself to just do what makes sense. And what makes sense is eating when you're hungry. What makes sense is eating for fuel and building your body. What makes sense is if I'm not hungry, why am I eating?
Yeah.
And when you start thinking like that, all of a sudden these other things that you're doing, you start to see where, gosh, I was doing that because everybody else does it and I want to be like everybody else. And why is that a thing?
Another sign that my body was telling me something and I didn't listen was my skin. Like if you guys, for me it was skin tags, but if you guys have like, I've heard like eczema can be related to sugar, skin tags, it's a good sign of an insulin imbalance. What did I do about that? Like watch videos about how to get rid of them. That's like when the answer is like way more simple than what like you will see on or YouTube videos on how to get like rid of your skin tags. But like those are good sign that you're in maybe in dangerous territory with pre-diabetes. I think. I don't
And
know
then,
if it can go like to there, but like
of
I
course,
think so.
because
Yeah.
if you have skin tags, that is actually a
Right.
sign that you're overeating sugar. Like,
Mm.
that's the reason they happen for some reason. I'm
Mm.
not really sure. But again, the funny thing about your skin to keep in mind is that your skin is another place where your body can release toxins, right?
Mm.
You sweat, and that's an excretion point, right? So urine, feces, and sweat. And one of the things that I find interesting is with the eczema, right? And like all these different ways that our body is telling us not just about sugar, but also about things that we're eating. Like, so the more acidic your foods are, the more your eczema acts up,
Okay.
which is, again, it comes back to this. So it's weird. Like, not that I think that acidic foods are bad, because I don't think that's what it is. But I think that in combination with overdoing your sugar, and then, so there's certain things that are happening that ends up playing itself out with acne, playing itself out with eczema, psoriasis, skin tags, like all these things where your body is trying to show you, hello, something's not working
Yeah.
here. And if we allow ourselves to listen, then we can definitely solve. But
Mm.
if we don't allow ourselves to listen, then, well, we end up living a lot of difficult situations where we're uncomfortable and we're not happy with ourselves, and we're constantly buying creams and potions and whatever. And like, if I put something topical on my skin to solve something that's being caused by something I'm eating, what's the chance that that's going to work? Right? It's not going to work.
Mm.
Versus if I stop eating the thing, I don't need the topical anything, right? Because if I stop eating the thing, it will stop affecting my skin. Knowing that sugar does affect the, what is it, the beauty of your skin,
Yeah.
the,
The health of
the
your
health
skin.
of,
Actually,
thank
the
you,
health
that's the
of
right
your
word,
skin.
the health of your skin,
Yeah.
because it affects your health,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
obviously, if it affects my health, then everything my
Mm.
body's trying to create is going to show. I like when people have skin reactions, right? It's tangible,
It's more
right?
obvious. Yeah.
More people, I do find that the rate of consistent adherence to eating properly is bigger when you can see the problem, right? When it's an internal something like high blood pressure, when it's like, oh, maybe I'm going to get diabetes in 5 years, like when it's internal and you can't see it happening, I find that people are much less likely to be as quick and on it, versus when you stop eating sugar and you see your skin clearing up, that's a like, ooh, okay. And it encourages you to keep going. And especially when you do it for a while and then you slip and see that, boom, like it's right there. Like, I can't avoid seeing this. It does help people.
Yeah. If you have teens with acne, we've seen a bunch of videos that like all are actually relating acne to sugar intake. So
If you look at our two kids, they've done all the products and whatever, but like, dependent on how their week of eating goes, we see it the following few days on their face, and they've started to pick up on it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's part of the reason that both of them are like lighter on the snacks than they used to be, because I think both of them are realizing like, when I eat those things, although they're not perfect, they still do it because they're kids, right? But like, I see the little light bulb going off in their head that, where I mean, how many days both of them skip dessert?
Yeah.
Both of them just like, yeah, no, I'm okay.
Yeah, totally. It's true.
So I think it's a matter of helping. If you do have teens, it's helping them to see it, just pointing it out, like, those days that they don't, and let them check their skin. One of the things that I think that is a sign, but it's a sign that by the time you get it, you kind of feel like, damn, I wish I would have known sooner. By the time your doctor is saying, hey, you have high blood pressure, hey, you're diabetic, hey, you have PCOS, by the time your doctor is actually giving you a diagnosis, that's a humongous sign that your body is saying something, right? By that point, it's saying, oh my goodness, please help me.
And it didn't happen overnight. That's the thing.
And it didn't happen overnight. Like, now, we've become in the position, where we realize, well, I know I was definitely on the road to diabetes. You had already started your road of high blood pressure. And it's like, we realize today that small changes that we made, and small, see, to me, it's so weird how, to me today, this seems like such a small change. Like, the fact that I can say clearly Violet doesn't eat sugar, processed sugar for sure, and like hardly eats sugar on her day, to me that's such a small change. For all the benefit that I'm getting out of this, it's like, it's so like, duh.
Yeah, no.
Why would anybody not do
But
this?
maybe we consider this small because it's after the fact.
Yeah.
Maybe so, like somebody that's like at the bottom of the hill to climb with no sugar. I can do it. Like, I can live without it. And but like, yeah, no, it's
But
doable.
can I point something out to you? It's kind of like with your other car when you heard that rattling noise and then you opened the back and whatever and you got it out and you're like, all I had to do was that. But for months you drove the car with that noise driving you nuts. And then when you actually did it, what seemed insurmountable was all I had to do was that. It was a stupid little screw.
Yeah.
All I had to do was that, right? It took you what, 2 hours?
Mhm.
Compared to months of driving the car
driving
and
the-
every
yeah.
time coming home saying, oh my God, it's driving me nuts, right? So, I mean, yes, it's a small change. It was a small investment of 2 hours to solve a problem that was driving you crazy for months. It's a small investment, and it seems so small once you've done it
Yeah.
that you're going to be like, why did I not do this before? But the thing is to do it first, right? To get over that hump of, I didn't do it yet. Because once you do that, you're going to be happy that you did it, right? But you got to get over that hump. Actually do it. So, how is it that we can get this far into life with so many issues happening? And everybody has the same story almost, right? That I was a little sore, and then it was a lot sore, and then it was I couldn't move. Yeah, I was, like gaining weight slowly. Next thing you know, I look in the mirror and I'm 20 pounds overweight. Yeah, like like everybody has this little bit of knowledge. And so the question is, how do we end up getting to the point where we're in a crisis before we solve? And interestingly enough, part of the answer is we are not informed about the addictive properties of sugar. And so, yeah, I know you guys are so tired of hearing me say about the companies that and processed food, but can we just go back to grandparents' time? I'm going to give you a different story. When I was growing up, my grandmother had fat that she would keep around the stove to fry stuff. So not oil, canola oil, or vegetable oil. Fat, whether it be from some kind of meat that she had cooked or what, right? Whether it was from bacon or whatever. And you know what's weird? Like, it didn't spoil. It sat there, it got used and it got replenished because, right? Here's the question. Why did we turn away from this towards all this processed stuff? And was so silly, but so obvious. You can't sell me pork drippings that I'm collecting myself. I'm collecting it myself from the meat I'm buying from you. But you can sell me canola oil. You can sell me vegetable oil. And somehow they convinced us that the fat that we were collecting was not viable. Guess what I have beside my stove? Bacon fat. Right, because it is viable and it is reusable. So there's a question mark that I have. It's like, why do we believe that our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our great-great-grandparents, that all the things that they did to stay healthy, for some reason today, are wrong? Anybody with a teenager, when you're talking to your teen and they're telling you, oh, mom, you're so stupid and you don't know and blah, 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 and you're looking at them going, so everything I learned up until this point you're telling me is mute because you're a new generation? No. And you know what? We know it when they're saying it. Why are we looking back at our parents, our grandparents, and acting like they don't know anything? We clearly see when our teenagers are making a mistake, right? They think they know and they don't know. Why is it that we're looking back and saying they don't know? Like, does that make sense to you?
No. Yeah.
Right? But we do it.
Yeah.
We do it repeatedly.
Yeah.
It's not logical. Wellness warriors, we need to understand that there are certain things that just are. Your body functions a certain way because sugar behaves in the body a certain way. There's no getting around that, right? The same way that arsenic behaves in the body a certain way. And I couldn't say, well, I'm Violet. I'm going to drink this bottle of arsenic and I'll see you tomorrow. You would not be seeing me tomorrow. And it's the same thing for sugar. It behaves a certain way. It's the same thing for ketones. They behave a certain way. And if we want to be healthy, we need to understand the difference of these two fuel sources, because sugar does have a role to play in our healthy body. It has a role to play. It's not the only player. Wellness warriors, we need to understand that difference.
What's strange and funny at the same time about this is, with all the data we collect, we gather, we know each generation actually reacts a little bit differently to the amount of sugar. Like maybe 80 years ago, we were not having the same amount of sugar. We were having carbs, of course. There were potatoes, like some of you like told us in the comments, and yeah, you're right. But the processed food, the added sugar, our generation of kids have never been so overweight than the ones before. We need to listen to our bodies. Actually, I think we need to.
So what I think you're pointing out there that's so important is every generation had carbohydrates going back very far.
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting. What was the proportion of carbohydrates to the proportion of meat? And I remember there being a study that showed that the plate sizes that we have today compared to the plate sizes that we had back then, like they're 3 times the size today. Take into consideration the amount of meat that we were eating hasn't enlarged that much. It's the amount of carbs that we're putting beside it. So it's like one of the things that I think is important, what you just said. If I go back to my childhood, so babyhood, and then I go back to my mother's babyhood, and then you go back to my grandmother's babyhood, what do you think is the difference there? Was there formula to feed my grandmother? Right? Like, we feed our babies formula that's made up mostly of sugar. And then our babies are 2 things: overweight and addicted to carbohydrates. Out the gate. Again, my daughter breastfed, and guess what? Hated sugar in the beginning. Still wish I would have listened to her. Hated sugar in the beginning. Avoided it like the plague, right? And we need to understand that piece of information, that if you're starting your kid on formula, then how are you expecting the kid not to chase carbohydrates? But this is part of the problem, is that we still act as if carbohydrates are the healthy thing that we're supposed to be eating mostly, and it's not reality, right? It's not the thing we should mostly be eating. Back in the day, it was steak and potatoes. Not potatoes and steak. It was steak and potatoes. Like, I think we need to listen to the language of how our ancestors were talking, right? When you would ask what was for supper, you would hear pork. You would hear chicken. You would hear steak. Today, when I ask what's for supper, I hear rice. I hear pasta.
Yeah.
I hear, right? Why am I hearing the side as if it's the main? Because honestly, in my household, the side turned into the main. If the side is the main, what do you think is going to happen to your health? And there were financial reasons, I'm sure, for some of these changes, right? You're a nation with a population that's passing 1 million, passing 2 million. You got to feed all these people, and I totally get that. But so feed them poorly and then invest heavily in the medical system, or feed them well and the money you save on the medical system can go somewhere else? Like, this is the question that we need to start asking ourselves, right? Because I think we're not asking that question enough. Like, the money's gonna go somewhere. I would rather spend my money on food than on medication. As a matter of fact, even when I'm prescribed medication, I don't take it. You guys know my story. And for those that don't, watch my last video. We don't have time to go into this today. But I've often been prescribed medications that could have harmed me / terminated my life had I not listened to my body. Well, okay, actually, maybe I should talk about it, because listening to my body stopped me from poisoning myself with iron, right? Because when I took the medication and I had a negative reaction, I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, nope, that's impossible, keep taking the medication. And then I took the medication the second time and my leg went numb, and I went back to the doctor and was told, hey, that's happened. And then in my distraught state, forgot to take the medication and my leg came back, and then realized, is it possible? And didn't take the medication anymore. My leg was fine. Only to find out years later that taking iron pills was the opposite of what was healthy for me with my condition of thalassemia. We need to understand that our body does talk to us. We need to understand that we, as an individual, do not understand this complex thing that we walk around in, and that sometimes what we have to do is pay the money to get all the tests done, to get that scraping of the surface of the minuscule amount that we actually can understand about our body, because trust me, we don't get it all. The best of the best doctors do not truly understand this complex vessel that we all walk through the world in. But that scraping to understand that maybe I'll know what I should be doing to help myself. And I'm so happy that I listened to my body. What worse situation I might have ended up in if I would have just taken that medication. Oh, okay, my leg is going to be numb. Right? Like, where could I have ended up? You might not be talking to me right now. Like, that's a scary thought, but that's a reality, right? You might actually not be talking to me right now.
So just like Val showed, like we need to listen to our body. Yesterday, I watched a video where we were asked to do a mindfulness exercise that was very like simple. Just close your eyes, sit back, relax, and listen to, like, feel every part of your body, like from the inside, like your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your stomach, your legs, and check basically if everything is okay. Do like a little system check if you want to make sure everything is okay. And if something is wrong,
and to find the pieces that are not okay,
Yeah.
which was the important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It was finding where there was pain.
because finding what may be wrong may give you hints about how to fix it. So if it's a joint pain, maybe you have inflammation. If you have something around your stomach, maybe it's a gastro. What else could it be? Like, I know lately, like I've had like gout attacks, so it gives you another like hint that like something might be wrong, or an imbalance in your food, or maybe you had too much carbs, or so you really have to.
And it could be emotional.
It could be emotional too.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's true.
I love that, because I do feel like mindfulness meditations and interventions do exactly what you just said. It points you in a direction. Your body is always talking to you.
Yeah.
And thank you for reminding me about that, because I do think that this is something that you all can do. It takes 2 seconds to sit quietly and just allow yourself to feel everything. And one of the examples I like to give people when we're talking about like how do you truly do mindfulness, and everybody right now, I want you to notice that if you're sitting, you can feel whatever you're sitting on. If you're standing, you can feel your foot on whatever it is, whether it's on your shoes, on the floor, on your socks. You can feel it. When we do that level of introspection and really let ourselves feel what's happening internally, you find stuff, right? You find stuff. And I remember so many different times that when I do my little introspections, I find stuff. And it's like, okay, work on that. So again, one of the reasons I love going to the chiropractor.
Yeah.
There's always a little something to fix. Thank you for watching Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. We love making these videos for you guys. Teespring, Patreon, in the description below. Talk to you guys again next week.
See you next week.